All right, and hello everyone. My name is Junglebook1, a North American Challenger TFT player, and today I want to highlight a specific augment, Venerable Piggy Bank, and how to use it to your advantage, as well as a very cool new comp that has been really seeing a lot of play in the Challenger meta, which is Sylas Sage Flex. So let's just get right into it. We are in the Lilia portal this game. And as you could have seen from the loading screen, it is a pretty relatively, probably high GM mid to low challenger lobby, I would estimate. Don't know exactly, but dropped a few units here. I'm checking the exalted. Always, when you get dropped units, would definitely recommend trying that, right clicking them, seeing if you can see the exalted a little early, because sometimes, sometimes you forget to check. I know I do sometimes. So that's what I was on the lookout for. Just grabbing some units here. End up hitting the Sivir 2, so I put that in. I'm looking to buy the Zyra, thinking I might potentially play around a Storyweaver opener. And I'm playing around a Rod right now. I dropped a Cloak and a Sword, and I sell the Nico for the Zyra. And this is Lilia Portal, of course, so no augments on 2-1, or more specifically, it's just random when the augments come. I do see that I have 3 exalted here, so I just end up putting it in. Exalted just in general is not the worst thing ever. I was considering playing the Garen plus Sivir plus Zyra combination. But because I didn't really have a great item slam that I was interested in with this board, like Gunblade really early on is not the first thing you want to be slamming. Because you just don't really do that much damage, so the healing doesn't really have too much effect. A BT is something I could have considered, but really don't really have a good solid melee holder for a Bloodthirster at the moment. And then Ionic Spark kind of doesn't, you could slam an Ionic Spark if the board is strong enough, but I don't really have a great tank, and also I'm playing around the Sivir right now, so I'm not really too eager to be slamming, things that are angling towards AP. Right now, my thought is, maybe I'll play around the Sivir 2 with AD items as a holder for either Kai'Sa or Ashe. So we end up losing that round. I get offered Venerable Piggy Bank. For those of you who don't know, this is an insanely strong econ augment, and econ augments in this meta right now are very, very high priority. Just statistic wise, they all the econ augments tend to be very, very strong. This patch, so I am already looking at that. On top of that, I already have exalted, so I'm guaranteed to get value from it starting from this turn. So I'm really looking at this. Healing Orbs on Brocrest, really not great options. These are both pretty decent, but I decided to go for the Venerable Piggy Bank. Kind of a more flexible game plan than something like Divine Rules. And I'm taking a look at the Exalted again. And yeah, really, with this augment, for those of you who don't know, it reads basically your Exalted Soul Core, instead of giving 1 XP when you sell it, gives 3 gold, I believe. And then when you lose, it gives 2 more gold. So basically, you can get 5 gold around if you're losing. So it is kind of ideal to be losing in stage 2, I would say. It really, that's how you really maximize and push that econ. And you see I'll be able to just make 10 here. I'm just kind of deciding what to sell. I'm considering Fortune, but I decide it's going to be kind of hard to fit in Fortune and Exalted until later levels, because I'm going to be wanting to play around Exalted primarily with this augment. So I end up selling the Zoe. I don't buy the Teemo in the previous shop either. And I'm just going to be making 10, then 20, then 30, and you'll see that my econ is just ends up blowing up. There are a few people opening in this lobby, but I'm not really too eager to open just yet, because there are so many other people in my pool who are strong, and by playing this Sivir 2, I do think that I can, kill some units, and I ended up killing up the Cho'Gath there. And I'm just going to sell the Soul Core for 20 gold. Here on the carousel, you can really go for, whatever. There's a lot of things that you could argue you should go for. I end up going for the bow, thinking, maybe I'll slam a Ginsu here. Or I don't think I'm going to slam, but a bow just in general, you know, it can make Ginsu, Last Whisper, Red Buff, these items, Static Shiv even, these items are super flexible. And you know, a 3-cost bow is pretty premier for the first carousel when you're thinking about flex play. So again, just scouting the lobby, and now that I'm on 3 loss, so there is someone else with Venerable Piggy Bank, and you can see that they are choosing to basically full open as much as they can. And there is another fortune player as well, so I decide that now that the pool is narrowed down and 2 out of 4 of my pool are full open, pretty much, you know, effectively full open, I decide to do the same myself. And just note that when you are opening, you do want to sacrifice, like, in this case, I'm sacrificing my Kiana because she's really my only unit that can do like meaningful damage. So if she's the first to die, then you know it's kind of hard for my 2 tanks to be the ones to fight. So that's why I'm choosing to solo front Kiana there, in case anyone was wondering. End up getting 5 more gold. You can see my econ just ramping and ramping. I'm already up making 40. I'm going to be making 50 on 2-6, which is incredible for, you know, it wasn't even an econ opener, and it's a gold lobby, a gold augment lobby on 2-1, or 2-2 with Lilia, excuse me. So this econ is already very good. And now, again, you know, two out of 4 of my pool are full open, so I'm just going to be doing my best to open here. It's pretty clear that that's just what's going to come down to. And I end up going for this. End up fighting the other Venerable Piggy Bank player. And unfortunately, it is very close, but I do end up winning this fight by a couple autos. I do think that, you know, it could have been because of my positioning, like because I chose to put Yorick here. It could have came to, I'm not gonna lie, there's always some level element of fight RNG involved when it comes down to this type of thing. We're playing the exact same board. But you know, I mean, it's definitely possible that me putting the Yorick here was a bit of a blunder. I honestly am not super sure. So I end up losing my 5 streak, which definitely hurts. I think if I 5 streaked here, 5 lost here, excuse me, you know, it would have been, you know, a better spot. Regardless, I do still think that I have plenty of play because of my, you know, incredible econ from this Venerable Piggy Bank augment. And so we're going to be taking a look at the items here. Now that I won a round, I am going to want to be, you know, considering slamming because I did lose my streak. So at this point, obviously with Venerable Piggy Bank, you get a lot of value from losing, but you do have to win at some point. And now that I lost my loss streak, I am willing to kind of slam items and either A, save HP, or B, start a win streak, right? So with these items, there are a couple routes I could go for. There were 2 things I was thinking about. The first was Ginsu plus Gunblade, which would pretty smoothly transition me into an Ashe type of game. And the other is kind of a more AP route. There's tons of AP slams you could go for here. I see Shojin Rabadons. You could go for something like a Static Shiv plus Rabadons, or Static Shiv plus Gunblade. You could go for something like a Spark, right? So I ended up going for the AP option this game. I don't remember exactly why. I think it is because I wanted to try this Sylas comp specifically, but I think it was also because scouting around, there was quite a bit of AD slams, right? And not as many AP slams. And for that reason, I kind of had a sense that my units, if I were to slam AP, you know, if you're slamming these items like Shojin, Spark, you're thinking about things like Morgana, Lilia, Lissandra, right? Those type of things. I think those units would be a lot less contested in this specific lobby. So for that reason, I decided to go for the AP items. Not to mention, obviously, like on a Cogmo. I mean, I know it's just a Cogmo 1, but just putting my item for the purpose of putting my items on someone. Cogma does like those AP items a little bit more. See, I'm able to be make 50 here, I believe. I'm level 650 on 3-1, you know, 6 gold on my bench. Very, very rich. And no augment on 3-2. Again, it is that Lilia portal, which moves the augments to random rounds. But I can see that there are 2 augments coming up at the end of the stage, right? That's always helpful in this portal. Always be looking at the top screen. It'll show you when augments are coming. So again, just trying to play my strongest board. I have thoughts about playing Senna for 3 Ink Shadow plus Sniper if I am able to hit a Senna. But again, just trying to make sure that I'm fitting in 3 Exalted above everything. and then trying to play, you know, my strongest board beyond that. Again, these slams are saving me a lot of HP. You know, I might not be super strong right now, but I think I end up winning this against Darius too, which is, you know, pretty awesome. And I think, you know, it's definitely thanks to those item slams. And I do end up finding the Senna. So I do choose to just level here, even though it's kind of awkward interval. I am kind of stuck with that 1 extra XP because I played Exalted on 2-1 before I was able to select the augment. But nonetheless, like you'll see, I'm still able to make 40 this turn very comfortably, maybe even 50 if I lose, right, with the extra gold from Venerable Piggy Bank. So not too worried at all. And it's kind of clear that I'm going for, you know, a fast 8, fast 9 type playstyle, especially with this golden Nico. So we do end up winning another fight, and we get a nice little 4 streak here. So, you know, obviously, like I said, would have preferred to lose the 5th round on stage 2, but ending up with a 4 streak here, you know, it ends up completely fine. My board ends up being completely okay. I am just looking for another AP item here. Maybe a red buff is something I was thinking, some anti-heal, right? But don't end up getting access to that, so I do just go for the tier, going for that Archangel. Obviously, Static Shiv would be a fine slam as well, but since I already have the Ionic Spark, you don't want that redundancy, especially this early on. For augment choice, so yeah, my sword is kind of, you know, obviously I don't really want to play around attack damage this game with these items. I already slammed in Ionic Spark. So raining gold sometimes is quite good, but my logic is I already have so much gold and so much econ from my augment, from my first augment, so I already kind of know that going into these augments, I'm really looking for combat, right? That's kind of the most important thing, because you can have all the gold in the world, but if you don't have combat augments, very often you can hit your super sick, you know, fast 9 board, but as soon as someone else gets to the same board as you and they have combat augments, you'll just lose. So I'm really looking for combat here. Stand United really does stand out to me out of these options the most. So I do think that with the items that I've slammed, I have plenty of opportunity to play tons of different traits, especially in a fast 8, fast 9 type board. So I am looking at that primarily. And then I got offered Combat Caster, which just in general, you know, with AP comps where you already have that Shojin slammed, extremely powerful, right? Especially with Sylas, right? You know, I am thinking that I kind of want to angle towards Sylas this game. Just my items really make sense for it. I have solid Morgana items, solid Sylas item already in the Ionic Spark. And Sylas does use Combat Caster incredibly well because he has such a low mana cost. So he's using his ability very often, thus gaining tons and tons of value from the Combat Caster augment. Your 2 in the shop is great. Again, like I'm on a 4 streak now, so definitely not opposed to, you know, whatever upgrades, trying to find my strongest board every turn. I find a Kaisa and an Ashe in my shop, just gonna hold on to them, but again, with these item slams, very unlikely I'm gonna be looking to play around Kaisa or Ashe this game. Ashe is a possibility. You know, there are always possibilities, which is why I hold on to them, you know, the 4 cost units. But pretty unlikely that I'll be playing around them this game. We end up taking a 40-0 loss to quite a strong opponent. It is what it is. And now the final augment appears. Sober Ticket is kind of a no-brainer reroll. I am kind of taking a look at my board and thinking about Recon Bob with the 2/3 costs plus 2/4 costs, but I end up going against it. It could have been cool, but to me, a little too risky. If I hit the wrong units with these items, for example, if I hit something like, I'm just trying to think, like Irelia, you know, and Set, I would I would not be too happy with that. And I think that, you know, Golden Removers is completely fine. It's a solid option. And I ended up getting dropped a Sylas Morgana shop. I don't put them in right away. Maybe I go Sylas over a Mumu this turn for excuse me, for Umbral. But you know, you could argue Warden is just fine as well, keeping Warden for my Jacks with Spark. So I just decided to hold on to them. And this is kind of the point of the game where I'm like, okay, like I'm going to be looking to play around these units primarily this game. You could argue I should have gotten them in this turn, but you know, a traitless Morgana, a traitless Sylas. I'm not too sure if that would even be better than, you know, Ink Shadow, Sniper, whatever. Volibear 2, I just say go ahead and make it. And now that, you know, I had a very strong stage 3, and my econ is so good. So for that reason, I'm already thinking about going fast 9. And with this Venerable Piggy Bank augment, if you sack some of stage 4, you can really easily go fast 9, right? Because you will be losing those rounds on the first half of stage 4, gaining 5 gold per turn. So that's plus 15 gold on top of all the gold that you have already. I find it's very easy to go fast 9 most of the time. You know, if I did lose most of the stage, I'd be I'd be around 40 HP. I'd be forced to roll an 8. But since I did have a strong stage 3, I just decide that, you know, more likely than not, it is just a fast 9 angle. I just decide to level this turn, I believe. And I think I play Sylas. I should get Aatrox in this turn. I don't know if I saw it, but Aatrox over a Mumu for Bruiser Ghostly would be pretty good. I was a little more focused on slamming some items, and just to go over that, I decided to go for the Adaptive Helm, which, you know, you really can't go wrong with Adaptive on Sylas, and in this comp in general, given I have the Golden Remover. I can move that around super easily. Very flexible slam. So I just go for the Adaptive. Kind of highlighting the other slams. Stoneplate, not really something that you want on Sylas. He's not really a Giga Tank. He's more of a, think of him as a melee carry. So you don't really want him getting full focused first. So Stoneplate is kind of counterintuitive in that sense. I don't think Protector's Vow is super incredible on him. You know, it's an acceptable slam. But really, you know, nothing super special. And then what was the last one? Sorry, Even Shroud obviously is not something I'm looking to slam here. Apologies, as there's some noise outside. But so that's why I went for the Adaptive here. Items on Morgana for now, and again, I can always move things around. If I was super sharp this turn, again, I would have gone for Aatrox in over a Mumu, and then Golden Remover, the Spark onto Sylas. That definitely would have been the best for this turn. So again, just gonna be sacking. Kind of realizing that fast 9 is very possible here. And I am pretty much set to just 9 on 4-5, right? I'm making 50 this turn. I'm going to be making 10 extra gold across 4-2 and 4-3 from my augment. Just holding some board costs here. But again, pretty clear what I'm going to be wanting to play around. You know, Annie is somewhat of a possibility, but I kind of sell the Kane and the Kaisa after thinking about it a little bit. I get the Aatrox in this turn. Again, I had a chance to move the Spark to Sylas, but I just didn't quite see it. So I do make mistakes as well. I get the Zyra in for Sage as well. Just trying to kill as many units as I can. And we will be going 9 in just one more turn. Gonna hold on to Soraka here. Soraka, you know, very often ends up on your final board with this comp. It is a super flexible final board. It really just depends what you hit and what you're given, right? But Soraka very often fits in either with Wukong, right? As a Wukong being a Sage unit that you're very often wanting to play, Soraka ties in with Heavenly, and then same thing with Rakan, she ties in with the Altruist. So Soraka just very often finds herself on these fast 9 type boards because of her traits, lacing in with Wukong as well as Rakan. So yeah, not much to say about these last 2 rounds. Just trying to preserve as much of the HP as possible, right? I ended up just slamming the chain and the belts because I have Golden Remover. Probably something I should have done rounds ago. If I was super sharp. Maybe that could be the difference of killing an extra unit, right? Yeah. So this person ends up dying. So I am still going to be second pick. Really, I'm kind of looking for anti-heal. That is, or a Sylas item, one of the two. I have open belts, chain. So no Morello available, so I just go for Steadfast Heart. Just get some more durability on Sylas. I think it's completely fine. Leave the belt open for a potential Morello Nomicon later on. End up going 9 here. I am just going to slow this roll down a little bit. Push to 9, about 20 gold to roll, as well as some expendable gold on my board. Find a Rakan in the first roll. Find Morgana pair. I probably should have bought that ribbon. I mean, I definitely should have, which is my bad. Should buy the Sylas. Don't have gold for the Annie. End up selling the Annie for the Morgana. pick up the Diana. And I end up wanting to get Diana in over Duelist at this point, and Ink Shadow. And I go for the Steadfast on Sylas. And you'll note I'm kind of deciding whether or not to second or front, or sorry, back row or front row my Sylas, because that does make a difference with Sage, right? And right now I just decide to go for, I opt for the durability because, it's Omnivamp on Sylas. I'm not sure if that's correct. You know, you could make an argument for the AP, but right now I just think that the Omnivamp will be nice for my Sylas to stay alive. Though ability power would also help him stay alive, so that's why it's kind of awkward. I'm not exactly sure which would be better right now. I can't give a very solid justification for either. I think either is fine at the moment. I end up taking a 3-unit loss, not the end of the world. And we are getting a little bit low here, so I am gonna kind of want to, roll pretty deep here, try to find that Sylas too. Very often you'd be able to just sack this around, but since I am, approaching, 2, maybe even 1 lives, it is kind of urgent to roll now. I get offered the Udyr encounter, and I end up going for the magic because I see that I do really need anti-heal. So I go for the anti-heal option onto Morgana here. Just remove the items before I roll so I don't forget. Should have bought that Galio. It's my fault. And now that I pick up Udyr, Pair, and Ornn, I end up thinking that I want to play around these guys. And about now is when you want to think about dropping from Exalted, right? Because if the Exalted is a very good Exalted, but what I mean by that is it's very easy to play without playing a lot of bad units. So an example of that is there's a Hwei, Irelia, Soraka Exalted, and that Exalted is extremely powerful because, like I said earlier, Soraka finds herself already naturally on many Fast 9 boards, as well as Hwei and Irelia being legendary units. That type of Fast 9 board, it probably would be worth playing around Exalted on 9. But since all these Exalted units are quite lackluster, like I'm playing like a lot of 1 cost and 2 cost on my board, and now that I find this, Udyr, right? Udyr Ornn combination as well, which is a premier frontline in the late game, as well as the Lissandra pair, I just end up opting to drop from Exalted. Again, really just approaching this as an econ augment, right? And you can see the effect of it, right? This gold augment got me to 9 on 4-5 with plenty of gold to roll and find this board. So yeah. And I end up greeting the Golden Nico here. I did think that there was a chance I was strong enough on this board, but I ended up fighting a very strong board of Ornn 2, Sylas 2, Kaisa 2. So I do drop this round as well, which is a little scary, but I am sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pairs. And obviously Sylas 2 being probably the most supported one at the moment. Udyr 2 is also a fine option, but I actually do think that Sylas is somewhat of a more reliable pure carry than Udyr is at times. That's just how powerful this unit is at the moment. So I end up surviving, and 60 HP, honestly, unless I take a super bad loss, which I can't really anticipate myself taking, is likely 2 lives. So I am still sitting somewhat comfortably. Obviously, comfortably is a stretch, but I am still okay. It's not lost. The game's not lost just yet. You can see I pick up the Ornn pair here. And really my thought right now is to drop Lissandra for a Bruiser, which again kind of hurts that I forgot to buy the Ribbon, and I end up highlighting that. Galio again is completely fine as well. But with this much frontline, since I anticipate having Ornn 2, Udyr 2, and Sylas 2, I'm thinking that Ribbon might just be better for an extra 10 armor and MR for my whole team, because Ribbon does provide Altruist, right? So gonna obviously roll down all my gold here. I'll kind of on my final leg. I end up selling the Lissandra here for the Ribbon, holding the Galio again. If I hit Galio 2, then I'll play it over Ribbon. And I do end up hitting the Galio 2. I am kind of debating if Galio 2 is stronger than the 3 Altruists, and then I kind of realize I do need that kind of front line because my front line is kind of looking a little sad at the moment. And I end up just duplicating Sylas because I didn't end up finding another Sylas. And now that I'm Sylas 2, he does have that extra survivability compared to his Sylas 1. So I do opt to send him to the backline, which will give him AP from Sage as well as AP from Adaptive Helm, because I kind of do need a little more damage at this point, right? I think I have plenty of frontline through, this Recon in itself is not bad, as well as the Galio 2 Ornn plus Udyr combo. So I do opt to send the Sylas in the backline for a little bit more damage, right? Let me just speed it up here. I believe we do. I mean, we do win this round, of course. You can see the Sylas just so hard to take down, and it is a very potent combo between Sylas and Morgana. End up seeing a Lissandra pair here, and I kind of realized that it's kind of hard for me to afford. And on top of that, I don't really have a great space for Lissandra, I guess you could say. I could play if I had the chance to play Lissandra 2 over the Zyra right now, I definitely would. But just the fact that it's a pair and I can't really afford it this turn just means that I kind of opt for rolling past it. I end up fighting an Azir, which is Dryad, so I end up just playing that. And I use my Golden Remover to move a tank item to my Galio 2, and then the Archangel to Azir, because I kind of realized I do need a tiny bit more damage, right? I think I am still lacking in damage, whereas my front line is really not that bad now that I have Sylas to Galio to Udyr and Ornn. And of course, with this many pairs and pretty impactful pairs at that, I am just going to be sending it down to 0 pretty much every turn. And I'm going to be forced to lock here for the Recon, because that would be a massive upgrade for me. And you'll see I'm going to move the items around here. And I decide to go for the Archangel on Sylas and then the Adaptive on backline. I think it just makes a little more sense because if I'm backlining Sylas anyway and I kind of want him to do more damage, Archangel is just better for that. And then Adaptive is just a much better item on Azir, right? In terms of a single item, just to get that that extra mana, maybe get him to cast 2, maybe even 3 times in certain fights. So I think it made a lot more sense. And you can see, Sylas does live for a long time in pretty much every late game fight, getting up to, that extra 120 AP and doing the most damage on my team for that fight. So I do think it was the right move there. I get a lot of interesting choices here. I'm going to highlight a few things. There's an Udyr 2, right? There is a Bruiser emblem, which I was thinking was a possibility because Tahm Kench was one of the Exalteds. So I was thinking maybe I could go for a 4 Bruiser setup with Tahm Kench and then fit it in Exalted somehow. Also, Altruist is a great option. So all these are good options, but since I'm so low, I end up just going for the Udyr 2, which I think is completely fine. Yeah, not much to say about that. I think I highlighted the solid options there. Ghostly Spat, pretty fake too. Ghostly doesn't really do much. So I take the Udyr for the Udyr. I end up going for a Reforge on the Redemption. And my logic in that is I don't think I really need as many pure tank items at this point. What I'm thinking of is maybe a damage item for Azir, a damage item for Udyr, something like that. But the Dragon Claw is completely fine as well. I think keeping the Redemption as well would have been fine. But I do think there's a lot of good stuff that I can hit with this Reforge. So I was specifically looking for an AP item on Azir because my damage was slightly lackluster, but my frontline, you can see my frontline really shaping up now between Sylas 2, Udyr 2, Galio 2. But Dragon Claw completely fine. You'll see that I end up golden removing these items onto Udyr. Obviously a 5-star, 5-cost legendary is stronger than a 2-star 4-cost. Sorry. And I am just trying to get Udyr same side as the Ashe. That's my goal. And you'll see that Udyr does run away, and so does Sylas. So I actually end up losing this fight. If my Udyr and Sylas were able to find the Ashe slightly sooner, I would have won. But only taking a 2-0 loss. I am still alive, still got some fight in me. And I end up finding the Wukong, which I do slot in over the Azir here for Heavenly and Sage. I do think that between Udyr, Sylas, and Morgana, I probably have enough damage at this point. And you'll see I end up swapping the Udyr to the right here. Again, just trying to find the enemy back, like be on the same side as the enemy backline is pretty important. And you'll see that in these fights, right? These units are just so hard to take down. Whether you put Sylas in the back or the front, like these units benefit so heavily from Sage, right? And it is pretty close. I mean, my Udyr was still full HP, so pretty comfortable win there. At this point, I'm thinking I want to get 3 Ultras in because I have that Udyr 2 as my frontline now. I don't think Galio is quite as important anymore. I actually do think 3 Altruist is pretty valuable, giving that extra 10 armor and MR to my entire team, right? Again, 10 armor and MR might not seem like much, but it really does add up if you're accounting for 9 units, right? And just gonna roll here, nice to hit that Orin, and just looking for Con to Wukong 2, right? If I was healthier, of course, I would probably just elect to econ up and try to push to level 10. Maybe slot in something like a Zyra at 10, but because I was on 1 life, it just, you kind of need to roll here. I do end up pairing up on the Wukong. Unfortunate that I'm 2 pairs, but yeah, it is what it is. Sometimes that happens, and I'm going for the Thieves Gloves on Orin, which I think is kind of a no-brainer here. If I hit Rakan 2 or Wukong 2, I can even remove the Thieves Gloves onto either of them. I could also remove the Thieves Gloves onto like Udyr, for example, if I get like super carry-oriented items, and then move tank items onto Orin. That's always an option. But these items are completely fine on Orin, like Warmogs, Morello, nothing wrong with that. And again, trying to get, I take a quick peek at my opponents here, and seeing that they're both of their carries are on the right side, I move my Udyr to the right. And you'll see that this makes the world of a difference, right? Udyr just stashes immediately onto the Ashe, and I would argue, this probably wins me the fight, right? Killing that Ashe immediately. He really loses a lot of his DPS, and it really just gives me a one-sided fight, and even lets me kill off this opponent, which is really nice. And pretty much, at this point, I'm not going to make it to 10, so just going to be donkey rolling for these last 2 upgrades. Willing to sell one for the other, so that's why I'm rolling to true 0, because, again, I have 1 life, and if I see 1 Xayah or 1 Wukong, I'm willing to sell the other to upgrade it, right? Just have it the maximum board strength as soon as possible. Just taking a look at my opponent, obviously, he seems pretty insistent on staying on the left, so I keep Morgana on the right to avoid Aphelios and Ashe for as long as possible, and then put my Ornn and Udyr right in front of his carries. So I'd say pretty optimal positioning, honestly. And that's kind of what I'm looking out for when playing this style. And you'll see, like, Sylas, obviously he is a 2-star 4 cost and a bruiser, like, quite tanky. But he can't straight up tank entire boards, which is why it's kind of important to hide him a little bit behind these other tankier units, whether it's Udyr, Ornn, Galio, these types of things. That way he doesn't take first aggro and he's able to survive for longer. Obviously, in this case, with the Archangels as well, it's even more important that he stays alive for a long time so that he can scale, right, with the Archangels AP. So those are the things that I'm thinking about when positioning. And yeah, you'll see, like, even this pretty strong 7 faded board, Aphelios 3, and just unable to chew through my front line. And we're definitely looking pretty solid here. Definitely thinking at this point, okay, maybe I can play for top 2, maybe even top 1 this game. Taking a look at this opponent, I see that he was scouting me, and I kind of anticipated that he would swap his Ashe. I do see that he would swap it at the last second, and luckily I was ready with the Udyr. So now you'll see, again, Udyr is just going to get on the Ashe immediately, right? And this is usually only possible, by the way, on the right pocket, on the right side of the board. So if your opponent puts their carry on the upper right, if you put Udyr right in front of it on your upper right hex, he will almost always dash straight to the carry on the first cast. It's a lot... I think it's almost impossible for this to happen on the left side, just to be noted. The board isn't perfectly symmetrical. But on the right side, if they have their corner carry, Udyr here, he will almost always grab them. And yeah, if that happens, right, he brings Ash up a row, or 2 rows even in this case. I mean, it's just the fight's won already, right? Immediately. So a little positioning trick there for you with Udyr. And you'll see, thanks to that, I am able to have a pretty easy fight. I think I end up bringing this person to 1 life, not quite able to kill them off. I am thinking about a few things here. The Rakan sticks out to me the most. There's also like these gloves, which just tends to be good. You know, at this point of the game, whether it's for like my Rakan or Wukong at this point. But I do end up just prioritizing the Wukong too. I take a look at what spat I can make against Porcelain spat, which, you know, isn't super thrilling. If I was level 10, I could play like a Lissandra, which would be great, but, you know, I just take Rakan for Rakan, right? And I end up putting this TG on Rakan, the Guard Breaker being much better on Rakan than Ornn. And then Porcelain spat is whatever, just attack speed. I end up putting it on Soraka. It doesn't really matter, honestly. And unfortunately, my position here quite tragic. I ended up fumbling a little bit. I was anticipating a side swap again, but he ended up just staying on the left side. So now you can see that this Kaisa, after biting through my weaker tanks, will immediately get onto Sylas. That's why you would much rather prefer Udyr on the left side, right? Obviously, Sylas can dash away like he does, but again, just the main concept that Sylas is dying and getting focused before Udyr, right? You really want Udyr and Ornn to get focused first. So maybe if my Sylas was able to live a bit longer, I could have won this fight and then played for a first, but, you know, it ends up being a solid second, thanks to Sylas, Sage Flex, and Venerable Piggy Bank. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely would recommend this comp if you are a fan of the Fast 8, Fast 9 playstyle, as well as just kind of, you know, just playing Flux TFT, right? It's not going to always be that you're playing around Udyr and Ornn, right? Sometimes you'll be playing around Galio plus Zyra for Story Weaver, right? Galio, Zyra, Ribbon plus Sylas, right? There's tons of options. There's tons of exalted combinations that could change up your board, right? It really just depends what you hit, which is kind of the beauty of this comp. I think that it's super flexible and you can play into so many outs. So it's really hard to miss, which really helps in a lot of cases. So for that reason, would highly recommend this comp. Super fun, super satisfying to play. And I hope y'all found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And I will catch you all next time. Peace out.